Alexandra, thank you for joining me today. You are the Director of Finance at Undo, helping scale enhanced rock weathering into a bankable, durable form of carbon removal. I'm Karol Kaczmarek, the co-founder of Net Zero Empire. Our audience would like to learn how finance, science, and operations come together to make enhanced rock weathering investable at scale. So maybe we could start if you could explain to us what is the definition of enhanced rock weathering.
Thanks so much for having me, Carol. Yeah, so enhanced rock weathering is carbon removal technology. It's a nature-enabled solution. So we're taking what is a natural process that occurs when rain, which is slightly acidic, meets silicate rocks. A chemical reaction takes place, and carbon, which would have been in the air, is dissolved in the rain, is transformed into a carbonate compound, which is locked away into the soil and eventually ends up in the sea, and the carbon is locked away with very high permanence. So it's a natural process. The enhanced aspect is that we try to speed up and scale up the rate of carbon that's removed through the process by taking small pieces of the rock, spreading it on agricultural land, thereby increasing the surface area, more reaction, more carbon removal, and there's fantastic co-benefits, which I'm sure we'll come on to for soil health, as well as the carbon removal process.
Thank you so much for the definition. I'm pretty sure that will clarify a lot for our audience. Right now, maybe let's switch to finance, since it's also your background. From your seat in finance, what mix of offtake, equity, debt, and insurance is actually bankable for enhanced rock weathering projects, let's say in 2025, this year? And how did Standard Chartered, British Airways, and other big companies transaction inform your approach to structure and risk allocation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, we've been on a real journey, as with many startups, and especially with new technologies. So as we sit here today, the debt financing piece is the most critical element that we need to fall into place to enable the scaling of enhanced rock weathering. Scalable debt finance will allow us to run more projects at greater scale and sell the credits to customers who want to pay for those carbon credits as they're delivered, which is at a point in time in the future when the rock has weathered and the credits have been delivered. But we need upfront cash to cover operating expenses and scientific research. So solving this debt financing piece is absolutely critical to scaling the technology. We were part of a super exciting first-of-a-kind deal last year with Standard Chartered and British Airways, as you mentioned, which is great and got a huge number of headlines, some great brands to be associated with. But what we really need is the scalability aspect of that. We need to keep going with every new customer that we sign on. We need to be able to draw down more debt, spread more rock, and go as fast as possible. Clearly, there's a huge amount of urgency here. When we see some of the climate statistics, we need to move as fast as possible. We've seen some super exciting deals in other parts of carbon removal space. So there was recently a deal announced on a US forestry-based project with a $210 million JP Morgan debt facility, which is just amazing for the space. But we need that to filter out from forestry projects, which are much more understood, to these new technologies so that we can move fast. Clearly, equity is important, especially as we look to grow new regions, improve our R&D. Insurance is another super important part. We've brought insurance into several deals now, and we're seeing some really innovative underwriters who are willing to write policies specifically on carbon delivery insurance, which is great. And we do have, I can't say anything today, but we do have a really exciting debt partnership that's going to be announced in the next few weeks. So this is great timing. And I think, back to your original question, we need all of these pieces if we're to reach the scale that we need to have a really big climate impact. But the financing is the key one today.
And that obviously helps whenever banks and financial institutions are getting comfortable in that area. Also, we'll be looking forward to the news. Let's hope it will be announced this or next week. Also, building on that, let's talk about revenue certainty. So Microsoft signed a follow-on purchase for 15 tons with Undo in 2024. How do multi-year offtakes from buyers like Microsoft change your cost of capital, and what protections do you negotiate around delivery risk and verification?
So I think the first point I would make is that those high quality customers is what really enables these early financing debt deals to get started, because you're immediately removing the kind of credit risk aspect here. So customers like Microsoft, British Airways, McLaren, some other great brands that we've worked with are so important for setting that foundation, allows us to set up debt and hopefully then apply that to other customers in future, bringing down the cost to them. Delivery risk is something that's really a hot topic across the space, particularly because we're in such an evolving scientific space. As we collect measurements, other enhanced weathering companies are doing the same. The registries that we work with to verify the credits are also learning. So there is an element of moving goalposts, which makes delivery quite challenging. So again, kind of working with customers who are early movers in the space, who are taking the time to understand what it is that we're doing and why it's important, means that we can negotiate the right contract terms to give us that flexibility. And they are, again, it's part of this first stage foundation work from which we can go on and build for other customers.
Got it. Those terms seem to lower financing friction. Next, let's look at cost drivers. What are the biggest levers on cost per ton over the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months, so 1 up to 2 years? Quarry and logistics partnerships, spreading efficiency, or MRV, measurement, reporting, verification, costs. And where do you see enhanced rock weathering costs trending as volume rises?
So volume and scale are absolutely key. So on what we consider our kind of the cost of purchasing the rock, moving it to the site and spreading it on the site as one bucket of cost. Obviously, scale enables us to negotiate lower prices per ton on those very practical logistical purchases that we need to make. The second critical part is the MRV, as you say. So at the moment, we're having to take a lot of measurements, excuse me, in the field, covering a range of soil types, a range of land use types, to really build up a huge data bank to demonstrate the CDR that's taking place. As we scale and as that bank of data increases, we anticipate that we'll be able to rely more on geochemical models which have been calibrated to real life data, rather than having to collect never-ending amounts of data to prove what we're doing. So scale is really important to bringing down both of those cost aspects. And of course, there's an element of geography as well. So maybe we'll come onto it when we talk about policy, but operating in the global north comes with more cost, and scaling our project into the global south is absolutely going to help that, but that creates problems or extra challenges with financing as well.
So that's helpful, but I think that also gives you a good roadmap for unit close decline.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about MRV as a finance enabler. So Undo's Newton data platform and sampling tools are often cited in your materials. How does the data backbone translate into auditor confidence and better financing terms?
So Newton is a software platform that we've built, which holds our operational data. For example, how much rock, where we spread it. We GPS track the tractor equipment, which is spreading the rock, so that we have really fantastic data set on the operations that we've undertaken. It also holds all our scientific measurement, so we can tie particular measurement, again, GPS location, when it was taken, etc. So that creates a really incredible data set, which gives the transparency and auditability over our data, which is key to bringing down the risk on such an early stage technology. It's data that is obviously used as part of our verification process with the registry bodies, but also for lenders. It's a fantastic way of demonstrating the work that's gone into generating these credits, and when you're trying to track how projects are going, it's a fantastic asset to be able to see everything right there. Again, it's all about risk, so being able to demonstrate those things easily just reduces the risk.
Makes sense. Comprehensive data keeps risk premiums in check, and obviously it's the key for most of projects.
Yes.
Let's right now talk about rock portfolio and permanence. So you deploy basalt and wollastonite. How do these materials differ in supply chain, ergonomy, co-benefits, and permanence assumptions? And does that affecting pricing for buyers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those two rock types have very different characteristics from a weathering perspective. So wollastonite weathers very quickly. We see that as being completely critical for furthering the science in a short space of time. Allows us to collect a lot of data and see very clearly the weathering process that's taking place. Basalt weathers less quickly. However, it's a really globally abundant material, and it's going to be critical to scaling in the longer term this technology. They both permanently lock away CO2. They both have very positive agronomic benefits. They both show increased yield and plant nutrient uptake in all of our agronomic trials. And so we see them both as critical pathways to scaling the technology. In terms of pricing and what that means for cost, one aspect is that nearer term credits attract a higher price point. A lot of customers are only looking to buy credits for the next few years, and a weathering reaction that takes place in 10 or 15 years is less relevant. So the fast weathering material we can charge higher prices for, but it's also more expensive. So again, I think this portfolio approach of working with multiple rock types allows us to really maximize the benefits from both.
Thank you so much for that insight. I think it's very interesting to see how this mineral choice clearly shapes both impact and economics for you. Now we can move to farmer value proposition. So what are growers telling you about soil health, yields, or operational simplicity? And how do you structure incentives so participation is easy and repeatable across seasons?
So in terms of the farmer proposition, there are several aspects. So we've already mentioned the agronomic benefits in terms of yield and nutrient uptake. Applying these rocks also has a liming equivalent effect, reducing soil acidity, which is often a tool that farmers are using. Normally, they're applying lime to their fields to have that effect, whereas applying these substances removes the need to do that. It's also a natural pest and disease resistant material. So like tons of benefits from that perspective. At our Ontario project, for example, the farmer proposition or the incentive is that Undo will subsidize the supply and the spread of the rock. We pay for that, and farmers simply cover the cost of the haulage of the material to site, which they would be doing anyway if they were spreading lime, for example. And I'll maybe just throw a couple of statistics. So one of our studies in the UK using basalt on a spring oat crop showed up to a 20% yield increase from the application of the rock. And we're about to also publish some results of Ontario agronomic trials. So there's really exciting positive signs there.
And is it, for example, proven that on such soils, farmers do not have to use artificial or chemical preservatives?
Yeah, so it's not a complete replacement. We don't claim that the rock removes all need for other fertilizers and pesticides. Absolutely a reduced need, but the farmer need depends on obviously what crop they're growing, their local soil conditions, that kind of thing. So there may be additional applications that they need to make, but there certainly our expectation is the farmer needs to apply less of those things than otherwise.
Okay, thank you so much. And right now, let's talk about something that most of the business owners don't like, policy and policy tailwinds. So where are you seeing the best policy or buyer demand signals right now? And do you expect more aviation or financial sector demand following? That, for example, British Airways and Standard Chartered examples?
So I would say there are cross currents of tailwinds on this particular topic, which are influenced by trust and price most of the time. So if we consider from a buyer's perspective, they want to see high quality credits, but at a low price. And those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand. You want, for example, transparency and low delivery risk over a project. And often those things are best achieved through operating in the global north, but lower prices come from projects in the global south. But inherently, there can be more risk from operating there, which might reduce the quality of the credits. So that makes it challenging. From a wider policy perspective, there are some great things happening in the EU, their emissions trading scheme, and what we hope to see is a convergence of the compliance and voluntary carbon markets at some point in the future. Unfortunately, there's less confidence in the US at the moment, but because we're a British company with a really large project in Canada, Canada also has some really exciting investments going on across the space. Undo is somewhat protected from what's happening in the US. In terms of aviation, that's slightly more complicated because they have their own CORSIA scheme that they need to work within from a carbon reduction perspective, which restricts the types of projects that airlines are able to invest into. But that also creates huge opportunity because they're looking for those high quality projects elsewhere. And that's exactly what brought about the British Airways deal that we signed last year. And I think there's also been a great example, Swiss Airlines purchasing credits from Climeworks, direct air capture technology. So we are seeing the airlines having significant appetite for innovation in the space. And obviously that's a very consumer focused, high carbon industry. So that's really encouraging for the wider sector that they're willing to look into these new technologies.
Understood. It's really good to see positive signals coming from the EU and Great Britain. What are the top 3 risks you actively model in the finance plan? For example, weathering yield variability, logistics and logistics costs volatility, or verification lag. How do you hedge or insure against them? So
I would probably group together your first and third examples there together under delivery risk. We have this yield question and then also the kind of scientific verification aspect. So as I mentioned earlier, the science continues to evolve quickly, which means that the methodologies are evolving, the rules around how you verify credits are constantly changing. So one way that we mitigate that is working very closely with registries. We have very open dialogue, very active in the wider scientific community, making sure that we're at the center of those conversations. We can influence decision making and make sure that we're completely aligned with the direction of travel. Then from a kind of practical, more financial aspect, we build credit buffer. We do not pre-sell all of our credits from our operations. We want to make sure that we have some headroom to allow for changes there or delays in verification, etc. That's something that I hope will reduce over time. Ultimately, it's in everyone's interest for us to get into a really slick process of operations leading to verified credits, delivery of credits to customers, and really streamlining that credit verification process. So for now, we have to build this buffer, but I hope that we'll gain more efficiency as we get more certainty and more data. And then I would say on the kind of logistics, direct cost aspect, you're absolutely right. That's a really key risk to us. And if we think about the business strategy more broadly, we have really, really huge ambitions for the growth of Undo and enhanced rock weathering. And we want to have as much impact as possible. So, but that scale of growth clearly comes with uncertainties. How we identify new projects, for example, the types of rock that we want to work with in different parts of the world. And that's a key part of bringing down the cost as we reach scale, as we operate in new geographies. But there's still a lot of uncertainty on how we actually achieve that. So one of our key strategies here is to work with local partners. We really believe that enhanced rock weathering is only going to reach scale through local knowledge, those roots into the agricultural network, relationships with farmers, and that takes local knowledge to be able to lever all of those key decision points. So that's one of our strategies, is building that network of project partners in other parts of the world so that we can grow as quickly as possible through sharing all the learning that we've already made.
And does it happen right now across the UK or also outside the country?
So we have a project in the UK and also in Ontario, in Canada, which is where this fast weathering wollastonite rock is. Yeah.
So in Canada, the model works the same. You also work closely with local communities, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is really important part of enhanced rock weathering as a technology. Is it's not just about the carbon removal. We have co-benefits for the farms, as we've talked about in terms of crops. We're working with local businesses to move the rock. We're putting money into those local economies, and clearly agricultural communities are completely critical. Not just for this technology, but for how we tackle climate change on a much bigger scale.
Got it. I'm also curious about your customer segmentation and products. Undo sells to enterprises and also runs individual subscriptions that deliver removal over a 20-year period. Which customer segments are most price sensitive, and how does product design differ across them?
So we do have some subscribers through our website, but we really see the B2C market as a brand builder. We have been lucky enough to have some great press coverage, particularly in the UK. And in the long term, we absolutely see those B2C sales as being key to growth. However, right now and in the short term, it's those big enterprise offtakes that you mentioned, which are going to make the difference. They enable us to raise finance. They enable us to operate at scale. So in terms of focus, that's where our priority is. And certainly, price sensitivity varies by buyer. What we see is different customers, even within the enterprise space, who have different drivers, different purchasing expectations. For some, if they have, for example, agricultural ties, then the kind of co-benefit story is a really important part of their purchase. Whereas for others, it's just about purchasing the carbon credit. So it makes pricing quite challenging. But what is really important is that they're true partners, right? We work together with, if you look at Microsoft, for example, they've been a fantastic partner of ours for several years. They've helped us to invest in 2 deep science sites where we have a lot of complex measurement that happens. They're looking to grow the technology in its broadest sense, not just purchase the credits. And again, that pricing needs to reflect the fact that we have to solve this financeability question as well. So, but we've talked about cost coming down already. Clearly, driving costs down and associated price is critical for the space and for Undo.
It's really interesting to see how offerings map to different buyers in your case.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can switch to milestones. So which commercial or technical milestones in 2025 to 2026 would point to as proof that enhanced rock weathering can move from thousands to millions of tons? And what single ask would you make of the finance community to unlock that step?
So key milestones, I've already mentioned upcoming financing announcement. That's really fantastic step forward and is truly scalable solution. So that's really exciting and obviously something that I've been very close to. More broadly for Undo, we're looking to achieve external verification of credits from our Ontario project in the very near term. That's critical proof point for the project itself and the rock that we're working with there. Across the space, we want to see more buyers of enhanced weathering credits, more people believing in the technology. We want to create as much noise as we can about the technology itself, not just for us, but this is super scalable. We can be doing this all over the world, and the more noise that we can create, the more that people know what this is all about, is only a good thing for CDR. And I think in terms of one ask, I would say to financing or potential finance leaders, be curious. If you're serious about enabling scale, you need to be curious about these innovative approaches, educate yourself, learn about the technology, and of course, be willing to take on a certain level of risk, because it's only through doing that that we'll be able to have the impact that we want on carbon removal and ultimately on the future of the planet.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, is there anything important we have not covered that you would like to add for finance leaders, for instance, deciding how to allocate carbon removal budgets this year?
Oh, great question. No, I think it probably just follows on from my previous point. There's so much exciting stuff happening in the CDR space. There's multiple types of technology. We don't have time to play it safe in some respects. We have to throw everything at this problem, take on multiple projects, learn as fast as we can, and go big.
Alexandra, thank you for the insights. We'll publish the highlights on Net Zero Compare, so our audience can see how Undo's finance and measurement, reporting, and verification approach can help make enhanced rock weathering a reliable, scalable part of net zero strategies.
Thank you so much for having me.